Imagine waking up to find that your own hand is no longer yours, but a sentient, flesh-eating monster that's currently trying to crawl into your brain. Most people would scream, some would faint, but for Shinichi Izumi, this is just the first 30 seconds of a nightmare that will redefine what it means to be human. Within a single night, the world changed forever, as silent, spore-like orbs drifted from the sky, carrying silent killers that burrow into human skulls to hijack their bodies. We see a husband casually sitting at a table before his entire head splits open like a blooming flower of razor-sharp teeth, devouring his wife in a single sickening crunch. This isn't just a transformation, it's an extinction event, and our protagonist is the only one caught right in the middle, trapped between two species. But what happens when the monster fails to take your brain and settles for your arm instead? You're about to find out why you should never trust your own reflection. The story takes place in a world where humanity has reached the top of the food chain, becoming arrogant and wasteful, until nature or something beyond it decides to fight back. This is Parasyte, the Maxim. We follow Shinichi Izumi, a socially awkward, kind-hearted high school student living a mundane life in Japan. He's the last person you'd expect to be a soldier in a secret war. The world looks normal on the surface, but underneath the skin of your neighbors and teachers, something alien is hungry. Shinichi's status as a half-and-half makes him a glitch in the Parasite's grand design. And as the bodies start piling up in what the media calls mincemeat murders, Shinichi realizes he's the only one who can see the monsters hiding in plain sight. It all starts on a quiet night, when Shinichi is listening to music, unaware that a small, snake-like creature is drilling through his window. Before he can react, the parasite dives for his ear, but thanks to his headphones, it misses. It doesn't give up, though. It burrows directly into his right hand. In a moment of pure survival instinct, Shinichi ties a cord around his arm, cutting off the blood flow and trapping the intruder in his forearm. When he wakes up the next morning, he thinks it was all a fever dream until his hand starts moving on its own, stretching into impossible shapes and sprouting eyes. The terror is immediate. He tries to stab the thing with a kitchen knife, but his own hand catches the blade with superhuman strength. This isn't a dream. This is a biological takeover. The parasite, which eventually names itself Migi, literally meaning righty, is cold, calculating, and entirely devoid of human emotion. It explains that it failed to reach his brain, so now they are forced to coexist. But the real nightmare starts when Migi senses another of his kind nearby. Shinichi encounters a dog that looks normal, but as it nears him, its head transforms into a mass of blades. Migi reacts instantly, morphing Shinichi's hand into a weapon and killing the beast in a flash of gore. Shinichi is horrified, but Migi is indifferent. To Migi, it was just efficiency. As Shinichi tries to process the fact that he's now a freak of nature, he has to maintain his normal life at school. Every interaction is now a life-or-death gamble. He meets Satomi Murano, a girl he has a crush on, but his hand keeps acting out, touching things it shouldn't and making him look like a total creep. However, the comedy quickly dies when they encounter another parasite. This one has successfully taken over a human host, and unlike the dog, this creature is intelligent and hungry. The tension spikes as the parasite approaches them in a crowded area. Shinichi is paralyzed by fear, but Migi is already analyzing the threat. This is where we see the fundamental difference between them. Shinichi wants to save people, while Migi only cares about his own survival. If Shinichi dies, Migi dies. The fight is brutal and fast, ending with Migi piercing the other parasite's heart. But this victory comes with a heavy realization there are hundreds, maybe thousands of these things out there, and they are starting to realize that Shinichi is an anomaly that needs to be erased. The scale of the threat begins to expand. We are introduced to Reiko Tamura, a parasite who has taken over a high school teacher. She is different. She's curious. She doesn't just want to eat. She wants to understand why they were born. She invites Shinichi to a meeting, and this is where the psychological horror kicks in. She reveals she is pregnant with a human child to see what will happen. It's a chilling reminder that these creatures aren't just monsters. They are an evolving species. During this encounter, Shinichi realizes that his life as a normal teenager is officially over. He's being watched, he's being studied, and Reiko Tamura isn't the only one interested in him. Back at school, a new student named A-kun arrives. He's another parasite, but unlike Ryoko, he's a mindless killer who views humans as nothing more than cattle. The pressure is mounting, and Shinichi's mental state begins to fracture. He's losing sleep, his grades are slipping, and he's constantly looking over his shoulder. A-kun decides that Shinichi is too dangerous to let live. He launches an all-out assault on the school, turning the hallways into a bloodbath. This is the moment where the secret war becomes very real for Shinichi. He has to fight a monster in a building full of his friends. Migi manages to lead the creature to the roof, where a frantic battle ensues. Shinichi is forced to use a pipe to strike the killing blow after Migi disarms the beast. But there's no time to celebrate. The school is in chaos, and the police are starting to find oddities in the forensics. Shinichi is reaching his breaking point. He's tired of the secrets and the killing. He wants his old life back. But Migi reminds him that the old Shinichi is a luxury they can no longer afford. Every day they survive, they move further away from humanity. What he doesn't know is that the greatest tragedy of his life is just around the corner, and it's going to come from someone he loves. The psychological weight of living with a monster starts to crush Shinichi's spirit, but the horror is about to hit closer to home. His parents, Nobuko and Kazuyuki, decide to go on a short vacation to rekindle their spark. Shinichi is relieved they'll be away from the mincemeat murders in the city, but it's a tragic irony. While they are at the coast, a parasite wounded and seeking a new body targets his mother. The scene is a masterclass in tension. His mother senses something is wrong, but she's just a normal woman against a biological killing machine. In a flash of steel, the parasite decapitates her and hijacks her body. Back at home, Shinichi receives a frantic, traumatized phone call from his father, who barely escaped. Shinichi's world collapses. He's paralyzed by grief, but Migi is already on high alert. The thing wearing his mother's face is heading back to their house. When the front door opens, Shinichi sees her, the woman who raised him, but the eyes are cold, void of love. He tries to call out to her, hoping against hope that his mother is still in there. But the parasite doesn't hesitate. It morphs her arm into a blade and stabs Shinichi directly through the heart. As he falls, seeing his mother's face as his last vision, his heart stops. Shinichi should be dead. He is dead. But Migi isn't ready to go yet. In a desperate, microscopic surgery, Migi disperses his own cells throughout Shinichi's entire body to repair the punctured heart and seal the wound. This isn't just a medical miracle. It's a fundamental biological shift. When Shinichi finally wakes up days later, he is no longer the scrawny, trembling boy we knew. His glasses are gone because his vision is now perfect. He's faster, stronger, and his reflexes are cat-like. But the price for this power is his soul. As he stands over his mother's empty grave, he realizes he can't cry. He feels the grief. He knows he should be devastated. But the physical ability to shed tears has been replaced by the cold efficiency of Migi's cells. He's becoming a hybrid. His father, surviving but broken, looks at his son and sees a stranger. The emotional distance is widening, and Shinichi realizes that to avenge his mother, he has to hunt down the monster wearing her skin. This is where he stops being the victim and starts being the predator. Shinichi sets out on a journey to find his mother's killer, guided by his father's traumatized descriptions. Along the way, he encounters Mamoru Uda, another incomplete parasite host whose parasite, jaw, settled in his chest and chin instead of his brain. Seeing someone else in his shoes gives Shinichi a brief moment of humanity, but it's quickly interrupted by the arrival of the mother parasite. The confrontation is brutal. Shinichi has to face the literal image of his mother while fighting for his life. Every time he sees her face, his human side flinches, but his new body reacts with lethal precision. With Uda's help, they corner the creature. In a moment of high-speed carnage, Shinichi tears the heart out of the being that looks like his mother. There is no triumph, only a hollow silence. He has completed his revenge, but the hole in his chest, the one Migi patched up, feels colder than ever. He's stronger than any human, but he's starting to wonder if he's still human at all. Returning to school, Shinichi is a different person. His classmates, especially Murano, notice the change immediately. He's stoic, his movements are too fluid, and he lacks the warmth he used to have. He's become a magnet for trouble. A group of school delinquents, led by a boy named Mitsuo, tries to bully him, but Shinichi doesn't even blink. He catches a punch with the same indifference he'd used to catch a falling leaf. But the real threat isn't the bullies, it's the psychic girl, Kana Kimishima. She has a supernatural ability to sense the signal parasites emit. She's drawn to Shinichi, sensing his power. But she misinterprets it as a soulmate connection. She doesn't realize she's playing with fire. While Kana stalks Shinichi, Reiko Tamura resurfaces with a new experiment. She's created a super parasite named Migi, who can control multiple parasites in one body. The stakes are escalating from individual murders to organized predatory behavior. Shinichi is no longer just fighting for his life. He's a target in an evolving war of species, and his human heart is the only thing slowing him down. As Shinichi settles back into his life, the boundary between his human emotions and Migi's cold logic begins to blur even further. He's no longer the boy who cried over a dead kitten. In fact, when he finds one on the street, he tosses it into a trash can with a blank expression, telling a horrified Murano that it's just meat that isn't moving anymore. This emotional numbness is a side effect of the parasite cells bonded to his heart, but it's also his new armor. While his internal world turns to ice, the external world is heating up. The parasites are no longer just random predators, they are organizing. They've realized that to survive, they need to control the human herd from the top down. We see the introduction of a sophisticated parasite network, led by the chillingly calm Reiko Tamura, formerly Reiko Tamura. They aren't just eating people in back alleys anymore. They are running for office, taking over positions of power, and creating dining areas where they can feed without drawing attention. Shinichi is caught in the crosshairs when he realizes that a local politician is actually a puppet for these monsters. The tension is suffocating. How do you fight an enemy that has the law on its side? Every move Shinichi makes is now being monitored by a collective intelligence that views him as a fascinating, but ultimately disposable, lab rat. The emotional core of this arc centers on Kana Kimishima, the girl who can hear the parasites. She's become obsessed with Shinichi, convinced that their connection is a red thread of fate. She ignores Shinichi's desperate warnings, believing she has a special gift, but in the world of Parasyte, a gift like hers is a death sentence. She starts practicing her ability, trying to track Shinichi down in the city like a game of hide and seek. The tragedy unfolds with agonizing slow-motion precision. Kana senses a signal and follows it into an abandoned construction site, thinking she's found her soulmate. But it isn't Shinichi waiting in the shadows. It's a hungry, feral parasite. By the time Shinichi senses the danger and sprints toward her, it's already too late. He arrives just in time to see the monster's blade pierce through her chest. As she dies in his arms, her last vision is a fantasy of them together, a stark contrast to the brutal reality of the blood on his hands. For the first time since his mother's death, Shinichi feels a flicker of raw, human rage. But even then, he cannot shed a single tear. He kills the parasite with a single savage blow, but the silence that follows is deafening. Kana's funeral is a breaking point for Shinichi's social mask. Her friends blame him. Murano is terrified of the coldness in his eyes, and the weight of being the only one who truly knows why she died is crushing. He's more isolated than ever. But there's no time for a pity party. The police and the government have finally realized that the mincemeat murders aren't the work of a serial killer, but a biological invasion. They've developed a hair test to identify parasites, since parasite hair doesn't have a root and dissolves when pulled, and they are starting to sweep the city. The parasites react by becoming even more ruthless. Reiko Tamura, continuing her experiment, gives birth to her human baby. In a haunting scene, she stares at the crying infant, trying to understand why it makes her feel a noise in her head. She's evolving faster than any of her kind, developing something dangerously close to a maternal instinct. Meanwhile, the government enlists a captured serial killer named Uragami, who has a psychopathic ability to sense the difference between humans and monsters. The hunter is now being hunted by both sides. The pressure reaches a boiling point as the anti-parasite special squad is formed. Shinichi is approached by a detective who suspects he knows more than he's letting on. The cat-and-mouse game is exhilarating. Shinichi has to hide Migi while simultaneously trying to steer the police toward the real threats. But Migi is becoming increasingly paranoid. He suggests that if the police find them out, they should kill the detectives and disappear. This leads to a fundamental philosophical clash between the two. Shinichi argues for the value of human life, while Migi points out the hypocrisy of a species that kills millions of animals for food but recoils at being harvested themselves. Their bond is tested just as a new, terrifying threat emerges: Gotou. He is Reiko Tamura's ultimate creation, a single body housing 5 different parasites, all controlled by one dominant mind. He is the apex predator, and he's just been given the green light to eliminate the troublemaker known as Shinichi Izumi. The survival horror is about to turn into a full-scale war. The shadow of Gotou looms over the city like a physical weight. Shinichi and Migi are now fully aware that they are being hunted by an apex predator that makes every previous encounter look like child's play. While Shinichi struggles to maintain his sanity, the government's anti-parasite special squad begins a brutal, systematic purge. They aren't using traditional detectives anymore. They are using X-ray scanners and the psychopathic serial killer Uragami to sniff out the non-humans. The tension in the city is electric. Everyone is looking at their neighbor's neck, wondering if the skin is about to peel back into a blade. Shinichi finds himself caught in a terrifying game of hide-and-seek. He encounters Miki, the beta version of Gotou, who can switch which parasite controls his limbs. The fight is a dizzying display of biological horror. Arms turning into legs, heads spinning 360 degrees, and blades clashing with the speed of sound. Shinichi survives, but only barely. He realizes that if Miki was a challenge, Gotou, the perfected version, is a god. This isn't just a fight for survival anymore. It's a realization that humanity might truly be obsolete. The focus shifts back to Reiko Tamura, the most fascinating and dangerous mind in the series. She has been ousted by her own kind. The other parasites, led by the pragmatic Mayor Hirokawa, believe her human curiosity and her baby are liabilities. They send a hit squad of 3 powerful parasites to eliminate her in a public park. What follows is one of the most tactical and chilling fights in anime history. Reiko doesn't just fight, she outthinks them. She uses her own body as a decoy. She moves with a grace that is both beautiful and deeply unsettling. She is protecting something weak for the first time in her existence. She contacts Shinichi, setting up a final meeting that will change his life forever. She tells him she has found the answer to their origin, and it's not what he expects. The meeting between Shinichi and Reiko Tamura is the emotional peak of the series. The police have surrounded the park, snipers trained on the woman holding a crying baby. They see a monster. Shinichi sees a mother. Reiko walks toward Shinichi through a hail of bullets, her body tearing apart under the impact of the lead. She doesn't fight back. She uses her shifting flesh to shield the baby from the gunfire, absorbing every round into her own vital organs. As she collapses at Shinichi's feet, she hands him the child. In her final moments, she explains that parasites are thin, fragile lives that were created to balance the earth. She admits that she has come to love the noise in her head, the human emotion of care. As the life fades from her eyes, something in Shinichi finally snaps. The icy wall around his heart shatters. For the first time since his mother was murdered, the half-monster boy begins to sob. The parasite cells didn't take his humanity. They just buried it. Reiko's death is the catalyst that brings Shinichi back to the world of the living, but it also paints a massive bullseye on his back for the police. The government's final solution begins: the siege of East Tokyo City Hall. The military moves in with shotguns and armored vests, intending to slaughter every parasite hiding in the bureaucracy. It's a massacre on both sides. Humans are being shredded by invisible blades, while parasites are being blown apart by buckshot. Amidst the chaos, Mayor Hirokawa stands before the soldiers and delivers a chilling manifesto. Who are the real parasites? Humans, who poison the air and water, or us, who simply keep your numbers in check? His words are cut short by a hail of bullets, only for the soldiers to find out he was a human all along, a collaborator who truly believed humanity was the virus. But the real horror is waiting in the basement. Gotou emerges. He isn't interested in politics or philosophy. He is a whirlwind of death. He moves through the elite task force like a scythe through wheat, leaving nothing but ribbons of meat behind. Shinichi watches from the sidelines, realizing that the military has failed. There is only one being on Earth capable of matching Gotou's speed and lethality, and he's currently staring at his own right hand. The aftermath of the City Hall massacre leaves the world in a state of quiet, vibrating terror. The government's victory was a hollow lie. They killed the figureheads, but they let the ultimate weapon escape. Gotou is loose, and he is no longer playing by the rules of human society. He has abandoned his suit and tie, retreating into a feral, muscular form that looks more like a biological tank than a man. Shinichi, realizing that his presence puts everyone he loves, especially Murano, in mortal danger, decides to flee the city. He becomes a ghost, drifting through the countryside. But Migi warns him. "He's coming. I can feel the frequency. It's like a black hole pulling at the air." The tension shifts from urban thriller to a survival horror in the wilderness. Shinichi is no longer a student. He is a soldier. But as Shinichi looks at his blade-like hand, he wonders if that choice was made for him a long time ago. Gotou finds them in a remote forest, and the encounter is nothing short of a nightmare. This isn't a fight in the traditional sense. It's a slaughter. Gotou moves so fast the human eye can't track him. He isn't just one person. He's a coordinated swarm of 5 parasites, acting as a single, indestructible unit. Migi tries to calculate a strategy, but every simulation ends in death. In a desperate, split-second decision, Migi realizes they cannot win as they are. To save Shinichi, Migi detaches himself from Shinichi's arm, launching a solo distraction to give the boy a chance to run. The scene is heart-wrenching. Shinichi watches his partner, the cold, logical alien who became his only true friend, get absorbed into Gotou's massive, shifting form. Shinichi is left standing in the rain, staring at a bloody stump where his right hand used to be. He is alone for the first time in months. No Migi to warn him, no Migi to fight for him. He retreats to a small village, hidden away by an old woman who thinks he's just a troubled hiker. But the silence in his head is louder than any scream. He has lost his power, his partner, and his purpose. While hiding in the village, Shinichi undergoes a profound internal transformation. Without Migi's constant logical presence, his human emotions return with a vengeance. He feels the weight of every person he couldn't save: Kana, his mother, Reiko Tamura, and now Migi. He realizes that Migi didn't sacrifice himself out of logic. He did it out of something that looked suspiciously like friendship. This realization fuels a new kind of strength. He isn't fighting for survival anymore. He's fighting for the memory of the monster who saved his life. He discovers that Gotou has a weakness. The 5 parasites inside him aren't perfectly synchronized. One of them is a misfit that Gotou has to constantly suppress. Shinichi prepares for one final stand. He crafts a spear from a rusted, poisoned pipe he finds in a trash dump, a poetic weapon, using human pollution to kill a natural predator. He tracks Gotou to a massive industrial waste site. The setting is symbolic. The apex predator of the natural world meeting the apex predator of the industrial world in a graveyard of human greed. The final battle is a visceral, bone-crunching affair. Without Migi, Shinichi has to rely on his own honed instincts and the poison of the human world. He manages to pierce Gotou with the toxic pipe, introducing a chemical imbalance into the parasite's perfectly tuned biology. The 5 parasites inside Gotou begin to panic, their synchronization shattering. In the chaos of the biological meltdown, a miracle happens. Migi, who had been dormant inside Gotou, regains consciousness and strikes from the inside. Together, they tear Gotou apart. But as the monster lies dying, reverting back into 5 separate, pathetic organisms, Shinichi is faced with a moral crisis. The righteous hunter side of him wants to crush them, but the human side remembers Reiko's baby. Are they truly evil, or are they just hungry? He hesitates, but ultimately, nature makes the choice for him. The toxins are too much. Gotou, the perfect organism, dissolves into a heap of useless cells. The war is over. Shinichi stands amidst the trash and the blood, his right hand restored as Migi returns to his side. But the victory tastes like ash. They won, but what's left of the world they were fighting for? The dust from the battle with Gotou has settled, but the world feels fundamentally different. Shinichi returns to the city, not as a hero, but as a survivor carrying a secret that would break the sanity of the average person. The parasites that remain have learned a bitter lesson. They cannot conquer humanity through force. They begin to blend in even more perfectly, becoming the quiet neighbors who only take what they need to survive. The mincemeat murders fade into urban legends, and the government quietly shuts down its special task forces, preferring to ignore a threat they can't truly extinguish. Shinichi finally reunites with Murano. The wall that stood between them, the cold, calculating cells of Migi, begins to soften. In a quiet, intimate moment, Shinichi finally opens up, not with words, but with his presence. He is no longer the half-monster or the scared boy. He is a man who has looked into the abyss and decided to come back. But as he holds Murano, he feels a strange sensation in his right hand. Migi is growing quiet. The battle with Gotou exhausted Migi's evolutionary energy, and the biological parasite is starting to enter a state of deep, perhaps permanent, hibernation. The transition is bittersweet. Migi explains to Shinichi that he needs to sleep to process the massive amounts of data and cellular damage he sustained. He won't be a sentient partner anymore. He will simply be a normal-looking right hand. The mini-hooks of their banter, the constant tactical advice, and the shared consciousness are fading away. Shinichi, Migi says in his characteristic monotone, "You were the most interesting biological anomaly I ever encountered. Try not to die while I'm napping." With those final words, the hand that once sprouted eyes and blades becomes still. Shinichi is officially alone in his own body for the first time since that fateful night in his bedroom. He returns to school, finishes his exams, and tries to live a life of ordinary plus. But the trauma doesn't just vanish. He sees the world through a dual lens. He sees the beauty of a park, but he also sees the predator lurking in the shadows. He is the bridge that no one asked for, a silent guardian of a peace that is as fragile as a pane of glass. Just when Shinichi thinks he can finally put the nightmare behind him, the past comes screaming back. Uragami, the psychopathic serial killer the government used to track parasites, has escaped custody. He doesn't care about species or evolution. He just wants to prove that humans are the ultimate monsters. He kidnaps Murano and drags her to the roof of a building, echoing the very first tragedy Shinichi witnessed at his school. This is the ultimate test. Shinichi has no Migi to shield him, no blades to swing, and no tactical HUD in his mind. He has to save the girl he loves using nothing but his human will. Uragami mocks him, calling him a freak and a traitor to his race. He throws Murano off the edge of the building, a heart-stopping moment of pure terror. Shinichi leaps after her, his hand reaching out not the monster's hand, but the man's hand. In a flash of subconscious reflex, Migi wakes up for a fraction of a second, providing just enough strength to catch her and anchor them to the ledge. It's the final act of a partner, a parting gift before drifting back into the void. The story closes not with a bang, but with a profound realization of what it means to be alive. Shinichi and Murano sit on a bench, watching the world go by. The parasites are still out there, hiding in plain sight, eating and living and dying just like us. Shinichi realizes that parasite isn't a slur, it's a description of every living thing on Earth. We all take from the planet, we all fight to survive, and we all rely on others to exist. He looks at his right hand. It's just a hand, but he knows that somewhere deep inside, Migi is still there, a silent part of his DNA. He has found his emotional payoff. He can finally cry, he can finally love, and he can finally protect. He isn't a hero who saved the world. He's a human who saved his soul. The final state of our protagonist is one of balance. He is no longer haunted by the maxim of survival, but guided by the maxim of coexistence. Shinichi Izumi's journey from a terrified student to a hybrid protector shows us that the real monsters aren't the ones with blades for heads. They're the ones who lose their empathy. But while Shinichi's story reaches its quiet end, the world is still full of mysteries. What happens to the human baby Reiko Tamura left behind? And are there others like Shinichi hidden in the corners of the globe, waiting for their own metamorphosis? Thanks for watching this deep dive into the world of Parasyte. If you enjoyed this high-tension recap, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You don't want to miss our next breakdown, where we look at a world where the monsters aren't inside us, but are the very walls we live in. See you in the next one.